No kids, a stable relationship, loving parents, an MA diploma, a decent job, 3 foreign languages. Sorry, doctor, what was I listing actually? Well, never mind. You know, I have a great dad. At the age of 30, my age, he already had 2 kids, my brother and I. At the time, he finished vocational education and he was working as a driver. But my father comes also from a broken family. His parents got divorced. But before they did, he and his brother watched their father drink and beat their mother up many times at home and in public. He was an alcoholic. They lived in fear of in what state he would come home that day, fear of not finding anything to eat as he spent all the money on drinks. And the mother? You're asking about the mother? For quite some time, she was an accomplice. One night, they both left the children home alone. And it wasn't like in the movie. My father, who was around 10 at the time, he actually felt scared and he went to the city to look for them. And he found them together in a bar drinking. Later on, after many years, she finally divorced and became a better person. But it does seem hard to concentrate on your studies, doesn't it, within these circumstances? Which is exactly the reason why my father had passed his secondary school leaving exam at the age of 40 and received his Bachelor of Arts diploma 12 years later at the age of 52. This is not the scenario we all imagine for ourselves in our dreams. Although he talked very few about this, he's still very much ashamed. Most of the things I know from my mom. Well, I can tell you that my parents had worked incredibly hard to afford me education. My father had a compelling vision to become a better man, a better person. He made a vow not to do the things his parents did to him. As a father, he tried to lead us, the next generation, and forget and forgive the last one, his own father. In the first years of my life, we were living in very poor circumstances, and as you can tell by now, his parents were not much of a help. But my brother and I were always the first ones to eat, and I was always given the time and the space to study. And goodness gracious, I took that opportunity. I always excelled in school, because to whom much is given, much is expected, right? I guess I instinctively knew it back then. The fact that I could study was not something evident. But fate is tricky, and I guess I needed to have another lesson about gratitude to strengthen my awareness about how lucky I am with my upbringing and the circumstances that I lived in. At some point in my life, I got to live in the Netherlands together with a very good friend of mine who turned out to be suffering from addiction. Yeah, you guessed it right, alcohol addiction. And mix this with the everyday use of marijuana. This was my time to learn and experience from the very first straw what my father could have possibly gone through, although I didn't realize this right away. But slowly, I started developing the fear of going home at the end of a usual working day, developing the fear of spending the whole weekend at home, or the fear of talking about it to anyone because I felt ashamed. But right now, as you can see, I can talk to you about this because finally it just got to me, I cracked, I had to do something about it. Because parents can only give us good advice, they can put us on the right path, but the final forming of our character lies in our own hands. You told me this quote during our last session, doctor. And I knew I didn't want to become my grandma who stayed in such an abusive relationship. And right now, what I feel is gratitude. I feel gratitude because my father could turn such a toxic parenting into a loving one for us. And I feel gratitude because I have myself experienced a person dealing with alcoholism, and now I can better imagine how it could have been for him living in such an environment. And this March, I turned 30, and my father will turn 60 in July this year, exactly the double. And for this occasion, I wanted to make an account of where I am at the age of 30 and where he was. Like, he already had 2 kids, he finished vocational education, and now I remember I listed out those things for myself as well, like no kids, stable relationship, loving parents, an MA diploma, a decent job, 3 foreign languages, and now I'm 100% sure that we walked a totally different path to our 30th birthday. And now you're asking me about my takeaways from today's session, Doctor? Well, there are 2 things I like to highlight. And one is to ask questions. Make the parents talk about their lives, their struggles. We all want to thrive to be a good speaker, but don't we wish to be a good listener? Like you over there right now, you are all good listeners, I can tell. And the second is to be grateful if you have loving parents. They may not be perfect. You may not always see eye to eye with them because you have different views. But if they are there for you, that's already a huge gift. In our everyday lives, we are so busy growing up. We often forget they are also growing old. Love your parents. Thank you.